So what does it take for someone to be great? And did you know that God has deposited a form of greatness in you? Welcome to this discussion right here on CITAM, Church Online Youth Cafe. My name is Linda Mwaniki. In the past week, we have been talking about maximizing on your greatness and basically helping us to understand that God has deposited a form of greatness in each and every person on the surface of this planet. And we have been looking at the story of David, where we trying to find out why does scripture have to say that David became greater and greater, and even other versions go ahead to say that he became more powerful or he became powerful. And this is simply because God was with him. And scripture also continues to help us understand that there's a form of greatness that God has placed in you. There's something that God has called you out to do that is meant to be great, that is meant to be heard across the globe. No one is rendered redundant. And just continue with the story of David in 1 Chronicles chapter 14. This is a place where in the previous video we were talking about also the way David had to first understand that God had established and confirmed him as the king of Israel. And that word confirm, in the Greek word it says kouros, which means to verify, to impact authority, to confirm, to influence, and to ensure that this person is standing. They're in that place and they're standing at that particular place. Basically, what we are trying to say here is, what has God called you out to do? And do you know that God has confirmed you in that particular area? And just continue with this series from 1 Chronicles chapter 14 verse 8. This is a place where David had just been confirmed as the king of Israel, and the Philistines decide to shoot back at him. They decide, we want war with you, David. We want the kingdom of, they want your kingdom. We want that place where you have resided. But David is in a relationship with God. He's in a place where he's understanding and getting to find out the area that God has placed him in. And therefore, he consults God on one or two things. And we find this from verse 8. It says, when the Philistines heard that David had been anointed king over all Israel, they all went up in search of David, and he heard about it and went out against them. Now verse 9, now the Philistines had come and made a raid in the valley of Rephaim. So David inquired of God, shall I go up against the Philistines, and will you hand them over to me? Then the Lord said to him, go up and I will hand them over to you. So Israel came up to Baal-perazim, and David defeated the Philistines there. Then David said, God has broken through my enemies by my hand, like the breakthrough of the waters. Therefore they named the place Baal-perazim. Now, just to focus on that particular place, just before we continue, this is the first place that David went out to battle with his men against the Philistines. And it wasn't just the first time. He goes a second time in verse 13. The Philistines again came and made a raid in the valley. So David inquired again of God, and God said to him, do not go up after them, circle around behind them, and come at them in front of the balsam trees. It shall be when you hear the sound of marching in the tops of the balsam trees, then you shall go out to battle, for God has gone out before you to strike the Philistine army. So David did just as God had commanded him, and they struck down the army of the Philistines from the Gibeon as far as Gaza. Then David's fame spread into all the lands, and the Lord caused all nations to fear him. I love the way David goes back to God. When he wants a strategy, he goes to God. When he desires something, when he doesn't know what to do, and he finds himself in a limbo of some sort, he goes back to God. And basically what you are trying to see here is that David cultivated an intimate relationship with God. And what we are trying to say is, in order for you to cultivate, in order for you to become great, in order for you to maximize on your greatness, you need to cultivate a relationship with God. And I love how David felt after God. You know, the amazing thing about God is that he also has feelings just like we do. There are times when God is sad, there are times when God is happy, depending on his nature and depending on what he wants us to feel after. And this is where this is the place where David was. David was at a place in his life where he felt after God. He wanted to understand what is in the mind of God so that I may execute and maximize on the greatness that he has already deposited in him. And I pray that wherever you are, in whatever situation that God has placed you in, whatever area that God has placed you in, find it in you to spend time with God, to ask God questions, because he will definitely answer, just like the way he answered David. He will definitely answer any question that you have, any concern that you have. So my challenge to you, and even to me, is to find out what is God saying about one or two things. He wants to reveal himself to us. And one thing that I just keeps reminding me, I'm reminded of every time, is that every sacrifice that we make to God, he honors it. When we take time in the presence of God to pray, when we take time in the presence of God to read his word, when we take time in his presence to hear, to listen to what he has to say, he honors our sacrifice. God honors each and every time we spend in his presence. And he's out there, he's looking out onto us. He wants to help us, he wants to encourage us, he wants to lift us up. But the question is, are you willing to receive the help from God? Are you willing to spend time in the presence of God and find the solutions for the questions that you have in life? Thank you very much for watching this video. Please do engage with us on our social media platforms. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you very much for those who are engaging with us. There are people on the back end who are looking forward to hearing from you guys. We have online counseling that is free. We also have face-to-face counseling that is free. And we also have prayers. And we'd love to pray with each and every one of you. Once again, God bless you.